System and the Constitution of India by Sri Justice Dinesh Maheswari, retired. All are requested to rise for the national anthem.
Mana adhinayak jaya he Bharat bhagya vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchala Jaladhi Taranga Tava Shubha Name Jage तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
I invite Hon'ble Governor for lighting the traditional lamp and offering floral tribute to Bharatam. Thank you, sir. I invite Sri P. Srikumar, Honorary Legal Advisor, Lok Bhavan, to welcome address.
The Honorable Governor of State of Kerala, Sri Rajendra Vishwanath Arlekar ji, Honorable Justice Sri Dinesh Maheswari ji, all the members in the distinguished gathering, the First Lady of the State, Arlekar ji. Now, as we know, ever since Arlekar sir assumed the office of the Governor of the state, he has been actively taking steps to see that the Raj Bhavan is made a Lok Bhavan. And now we know that officially also the name has been changed. But even before the name Raj Bhavan has been changed, because even when I met Arlekar sir for the first time, he was stressing the need to have people connect with Raj Bhavan. So he successfully did it in Bihar, Himachal Pradesh, etc. And here also we have conducted so many lectures, and it has become a series. And today, one of that type of lecture is to happen here. And when we say about Arlekar sir, I should say, he is having a high sense of political and practical wisdom. in addition to what all qualities he has. Because the first thing that the governor has thought is that the people should understand that Lok Bhavan is theirs. And that feeling with the people, the connect with the people that you can see everywhere, even when we go to common man, now they identify the Lok Bhavan, they identify the governor, and they identify that our governor stands for the constitution and constitutional rights. A few words that sir has spoken in last week, it had a tremendous impact on the whole country, I may say, because I had the occasion to see that happening in Delhi. I had so many friends calling me from Delhi saying that what a governor has done is his duty. So sir, to this occasion I welcome, on behalf of all of you and myself, I welcome sir to this occasion. And today's subject is the Indian knowledge and the Constitution. As we all know, Constitution is the primary document or the basic document which we have to remember. In this context, I may say when Arlekar sir addressed the gathering of the lawyers in the High Court of Kerala, he said the Constitution is a Smriti. Because we have heard of Smriti, and mainly we might have heard of Manusmriti alone, because so many people think that Manusmriti is not a document or a book which is not to be followed. And sir has explained correctly on that occasion that Manusmriti was written at a time which is different from what is presently we are facing. So Manusmriti has to be evaluated, analyzed and assessed in that context. So the Constitution, which is a Smriti, is the basic document. Every authority, every person, every judge, executive, legislature, everybody is bound by the Constitution. And the word Smriti means something which is to be remembered. So every day when we do a duty, every day when we walk out of our house, every day when we meet another person, we have to remember that the Constitution is there, the Constitution confers on you certain rights, and you have to protect, and certain duties which cannot be legally enforced, but you are bound to do that also. So in this context, I may say Indian knowledge and Constitution, just like any other country, the Constitution or any law will have its root in its ancient history. And we are fortunate that we are a country which have a history, maybe thousands of years as we know, but from our Puranas and other epics we can say it can be millions of years ago, because we have seen several yugas. Now we stand in the 4th yuga. If you take a yuga as 3 or 4 lakhs years, you cannot even think about that. So we have that history with us. When we say freedom of speech, we should understand our ancient saints. There are certain saints like Charvaga who spoke against God. They said there is no God. We did not object to them. We gave freedom to them. So that is our history, and that we find every chapter, every provision in the Constitution, we can trace it. Even for separation of powers, if you go to Arthashastra, it details the roles of each and every authority in a country, how it is to be done. So we have all these things with us, and to say or deliver on that subject, we have got here none other than the present chairman of the Law Commission, who was a judge of the Supreme Court of India, who had to his credit around 23 years of practice as a lawyer, 19 years as a judge of different high courts and the Supreme Court, and who has rendered so many judgments. It may be difficult because I think he was a part of around 444 judgments and around 112 judgments authored by himself. And those judgments include the landmark judgments in the economic weaker section reservation, the suspension of MLAs, where he said a suspension of an MLA is not as a punishment. It is only to ensure the smooth functioning of the House. He expanded the scope and ambit of the ED investigation. He found, or he gave new dimensions to the prevention of sexual harassment through his judgments. So many fields, I cannot say which all. Because if we evaluate, because you can Google his name, you can get a spectra of his judgments, which show that he has rendered judgments in every field. Service, constitution, criminal, civil, everything. So he was the right person to be a member of the Law Commission. And we know that Law Commission, it was initially set up by the British before our independence in 1834. and it was chaired by none other than Lord Macaulay. And in 1955, when we constituted, for the first time in India, free India, it was chaired by none other than Setalwar. And now, sir, I feel as the chairman of this august body, which is to recommend reforms to the law, because law can never be frozen. Law has to move on, it has to change. And all these changes, it should come from Law Commission. And sir is doing a great duty, and we expect that he will continue with that. And sir, we, all of us, welcome you to this occasion. And we have with us the First Lady of the State, who is always a part of the every endeavor. And Madam, I welcome you also. And I am not saying each and every name because so many familiar faces are there, lawyers are there, mainly people from lawyer fraternity are there. I welcome all of you. I welcome the media people, Raj Bhavan staff, and everybody to this occasion. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Now may I invite Honorable Governor for addressing the gathering.
Good afternoon, everybody here. Today we have gathered for one more lecture in the Lok Bhavan, which we have started for last few months, a series of lectures to enlighten the different categories of people, different criteria, different topics, different luminaries, different legal luminaries, different persons, distinguished persons who are being invited here by the Lok Bhavan. And for this today's particular lecture, in fact it has been titled as Indian Knowledge System and the Constitution, and that will be by none other than prominent legal person in our country today, the chairman of Law Commission, Justice Maheswari ji, Dinesh Maheswari ji. Maheswari has been in legal field for many years, as Advocate Sri Kumar was telling us, how his whole journey in the legal fraternity has been, and how he has traveled, how his judgments have impacted the people, common people, particularly those who always call as downtrodden. All of them have helped themselves because of the judgments, orders of Sri Justice Maheswari ji. Today's topic he will be dwelling in and making us enlighten on the topic that Indian knowledge system. Nowadays we just hear this word, this particular phrase, Indian knowledge system, or Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. In fact, we had a very big and good opportunity to look into all such Jnana Parampara or knowledge system when we liberated ourselves, or we got independence in the year 1947. We had a very good opportunity, but somehow we missed that. And somehow the rulers then did not look into what the knowledge system which we have. And for last more than 75 years, we have been just looking here and there. Instead of looking at our knowledge system, the traditional knowledge system, we were looking at what the other people, other world was giving to us. Sometimes we tried to go to capitalism, sometimes we embraced communism, sometimes we did something else, but we were lacking our own system over our own ground. But last few years we see the change now, because this was ought to happen. Not because there are some people who are good thinking about our country, our system, our tradition, our culture, but this, as all our seers, like Sri Aurobindo had already said, that this nation will grow itself automatically, gradually, and that too on our own system, on our thinking, our traditions. And that era is gradually erupting, it is coming up. We have to go towards our knowledge system, we must understand what it is, how it is being developed. We are just not one of the civilizations in the world. We are a prominent and oldest civilization in the world. And that has to be considered by each and every person. Everybody has to look into it and consider that this particular civilization is ours and we have to propagate it. This culture, this tradition, the history has to be taken into serious sense and good sense. That is the need of the hour. And the constitution which has evolved itself by the churning of all the legal people here, all the intellectuals in the country, that has gradually come up. And that constitution itself, as Advocate Sri Kumar was referring to, I always consider that it is today's Smriti. It is today's Smriti. No point in blaming every time Manusmriti. Manusmriti was evolved for that particular period, for that particular environment. Now if you are in a different environment, different atmosphere, different era, you have to have your own Smriti. Our civilization, our thought processes always evolved. There was not only one Smriti named after Manusmriti. There were still more Smritis in our ancient eras. But they were for those particular periods. If now we are in a modern period, we have to have one more Smriti, and that is what we call Constitution today. So what is it, how the Constitution has evolved itself? I am not a legal person, I don't understand much about legalities and constitutional matters. But as a common person, I feel that whatever Constitution has been giving us is nothing but the same flow of our knowledge system, same flow. As Sri Kumar was mentioning, I was just for a National Law Day on 25th of November, I was in Kochi at the High Court of ours. And that time there was one exhibition placed. Some exhibits were there. All those exhibits were telling us how our Constitution book itself, when it was published first, it was carrying the pictures of our ancient happenings. Lord Rama was there, Hanuman was there, Lord Buddha was there, and all those incidents during Ramayana and Mahabharata are pictured in our Constitution, just to tell us that we are inheriting all those thoughts, we are inheriting all that process which was gradually evolving throughout the years, throughout the thousands of years. Very same thing was projected there in the High Court building there. I was very fortunate to watch all those pictures. Even I suggested the organizers, that is Akhil Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad, you organize these exhibitions in different cities so that all of us will understand how our Constitution is directly connected to our ethos, to our history, to our tradition. That was very much necessary. And very same thing is being today projected before all of us. I am very happy that Justice Maheswari is amongst us. I need not tell about him to you all. Many of you are very related to law, related to legal framework. All of you are there. You know what Justice Maheswari has been here. and none other than Justice Maheswari, because he is the chairman of the Law Commission of our country. He will be in a better position to tell us everything that has been happening, that had happened, that has happened, and that will be happening to our constitution, to our legal system, and to our knowledge system. That is why he is here. On behalf of all of people in the Lok Bhavan and the people of Kerala, I welcome you, Justice Maheswari ji, to this lecture, and I conclude myself. Namaskaram.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Sri Justice Dinesh Maheswari, sir, Chairperson, Law Commission of India, to deliver the lecture.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Governor, sir, having invited me and having introduced me. I'm beholden. Thank you so very much. എല്ലാവർക്കും എൻ്റെ നമസ്കാരം. As was introduced, we all have assembled here not for a discussion, but for delving deep into experiencing the profound heritage of our civilizational legacy. The Indian knowledge system, or as is put, Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, and its connect, basic connect, perennial connect, unending connect with the ethos and the values enshrined in our constitution. To start with, I'm not presenting any quote from a constitution or a charter, but something of an interesting exchange of dialogues from our ancient roots. One of the Upanishads narrates a long and deep conversation between King Janak and eminent sage Yajnavalkya, where the king asks as to what serves as the light for a man, traversing through the light, this illumination from sun, moon, fire, and even speech. The king asks, when the sun and moon both are set, fire has gone out and speech has stopped, what serves as a light for a man? What is the light which illuminates a person? That was the question. Yajnavalkya's reply, with long explanation, of course that was, and it's a very interesting read for anybody interested, and we should all be interested. That about the pertinent features of the self, and that could be condensed in these words. The light of a human being is not a celestial. It comes neither from sun nor moon nor fire and not even the stars. What truly illuminates the self is awareness, not just of oneself, but of all others too. This conversation
this is the self-contained foundation of the entire moral architecture of the human rights, blending seamlessly into the theme of this conference and this lecture series, where we propose to talk and discuss about Indian knowledge system and constitution, dharma, constitutional morality, federalism and fraternity for a resilient republic. This as we walk through the 21st century, the present day, we realize that with dissolution of certainty, blurring of the lines between wrong and the right, overnight emergence of new realities, and seismic, if I can say so, technological shifts in the blink of an eye, the ancient wisdom of finding the light within by way of awareness becomes all the way more relevant. And when we are to make ourselves truly aware about the constitutional ethos, well, this series, lecture series, this gathering, these conversations go a long way in refreshing and enlightening our thoughts. As we will see, and I propose to submit before all of you for consideration, that in the present days, present situations too, our constitution, the basic values which inform our constitution, they would continue to guide us in every transformation, and the capabilities which is inherent to the Indian society of transforming this technological developments also into a vehicle of progression where dharma remains at the steering wheel. Dharma remains the controller, dharma remains the axis around which everything revolves and proceeds. Honorable Governor Sir has rightly indicated that there had been a few things of our past where maybe if I can say so, there had been a little bit more of experiments as to what really what kind of shape we want to give for our further future progression, including those talks and discussions about whether we are adopting a capitalist model or a socialist model or a soft socialist model or a loyal socialist model. But, and however, the fact of the matter remains that the model which has always informed us and would continue to inform and guide us is a model not borrowed from anywhere else. It is our own Indian model. And why I say so is because India is not the name of a nation state alone. India is the name of a civilization that has continued, that has withstood, that has continued to guide the globe. It has not been other way around, that anybody else has guided this. Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, as we say, is more than a mere collection of texts. Honorable Governor Sir has rightly indicated that if we jump on finding faults with Manusmriti with reference to the propositions which were projected for the then existing society without customizing them for our present purposes, and then without, particularly as a students of law, as we always keep on advising ourselves, that it is Manusmriti is not the only Smriti. In fact, the Smriti has been rightly indicated. Smriti is the name of those collection of those thoughts by the learned ancestors which had been retained in their memory, and then they have projected that for our purposes to take the things forward, and then for particularly for the legal fraternity. It's not only Manu Smriti, but the Smritis like Narad Smriti, Braspati Smriti, Katyayan Smriti, et al. Well, they keep on guiding us like, well, we have basic principles of evidence coming from Narad Smriti. And then we find, when we look at the Evidence Act and we find their reflection, well, we can only feel proud of that we have inherited a legacy which had been for years before even the European jurisprudence or even American jurisprudence was developed, where jurisprudence, both as the norms of society, the principles of society, as also the norms for court or norms for any adjudicatory process were defined and were projected for our purposes. So Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, ladies and gentlemen, is more than a mere collection of texts. It is the breathing and living knowledge which forms an interconnected framework for guiding the path towards future inquiry and innovation. At this juncture, I seek your permission to project before you a few quotations, and I'm very sure, even if I don't give you the names, but you would be able to connect with not only with that quote, but with its author, its speaker, and also its ethos. With your permission, sir, and I quote, "I'm proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I'm proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth." I'm very sure this learned audience is able to recollect it, that these were those resounding words of Swami Vivekananda on 11th of September 1893 in Chicago Conference. And they continue to remain relevant. They continue to remain, well, dynamic for all times to come. Quote number 2. I'm presenting it in the abject, or rather I will attempt to present it in the abject language. These words were written, and we keep on remembering them always. यूनान ओ मिस्र और रूमा सब मिट गए जहां से, अब तक मगर है बाकी नामो निशान हमारा। कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जमा हमारा। These famous lines from Allama Iqbal, they continue to tell us about the eternal resilience of the identity, echoing even the fundamentals of Rit, the eternal law. The talking about Swami Vivekananda was also talking about India, the nation, the civilization. Allama Iqbal, of course, for other different reasons which are not relevant for the present purposes, he chose to side with the other thought processes which led to partition of this country. But that is not the point. The point is, that is not the relevant point at all, because as Swamiji Vivekananda has indicated, well, we are the nation of where toleration informs us always, and then for that matter, even if a gentleman has chosen to go to the other side of the fence, well, we do not disrespect these lines, rather we remember them with all reverence. Third, again I quote, "It's true that even across the Himalayan barrier, India has sent us such gifts as grammar and logic, philosophy and fables, hypnotism and chess, and above all, our numerals and our decimal system. It has produced the profoundest metaphysics that we know of, but these are not the essence of her spirit. They are the trifles compared to what we may learn from her in the future. Mother India is in many ways the mother of us all." In continuity from the same author, India has survived every disaster, every invasion, every conquest, because her civilization was based not on force but on law, not on power but on duty. Honorable Governor, sir, ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of the 1930 classics from Will Durant. The title was "The Case for India." This statement just reflects the sense of tribute and also carries within it deep revelation, reminding us that the contribution of India is not confined to strictures and formulae, but lies even to her civilizational spirit. This spirit finds its best expression in the Constitution of India, which is a condensed structure encapsulating centuries of wisdom into, of course, a democratic structure. I'm tempted to cite two more sentences. My definition of, and again I'm quoting, "My definition of secularism is very clear. The sole religion of the government is nation first, and the holy book is the Constitution." India's democracy, again I'm quoting, "India's democracy has been inspirational for the world, and that is why we are the mother of democracy." But these were the expressions by our present Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi. Friends, the lines from the yesteryears to the lines of the present country, present day nation. The common thread, as you find, is a clarity that India's civilization is of permanent character. It's capable of withstanding any onslaughts, if I can say so, or any of the intrusions. Because there is something of inherent power in us. And we are thankful to the founding fathers of our constitution that all those powers have been given the formulations in texts of the Constitution of India. And more than the texts, the manner in which they have been presented, starting from the preamble. By the way, when we talking about the preamble, I'll coming to that in a moment, but I'm always tempted to share with the learned audience. When we talk about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar with all reverence, particularly for being the chief architect, if we say so, of our constitution, there is something which very many times do not inform our discussions about the contributions of Baba Sahib Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. As we know, as students of law, we know that when the Constituent Assembly, that has already been constituted much before the advent of 15th of August 1947, started its work, the task, the mammoth task of preparing a constitution for a country which would be freed from any other ruling dispensation and would be a sovereign in itself. They adopted, the Constituent Assembly members adopted an objectives resolution. And there were certain promises made in the objectives resolution. And all the values, including those of equality, liberty, freedom, of which we enter into so many of the discourses and keep on informing ourselves and guiding ourselves. They all found mention in the objectives resolution. The drafting committee who prepared the draft, while forwarding that, after had prepared the draft, while forwarding that draft to the Honorable President of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, being the chairperson of the drafting committee, wrote a covering letter, a forwarding letter, and something very significant and interesting was stated there. It was indicated there that the drafting committee has attempted its best to prepare the draft of the Constitution while absorbing and addressing all the significant features of the objectives resolution and tried to give them a shape. But that's what Dr. Ambedkar stated to the Honorable President. But the committee has added one more value and stated it in the preamble, which was not stated in the objectives resolution. Friends, it's always insightful and always helpful for us to keep on reminding ourselves that that particular value, which was though not stated in the objectives resolution, but was added in our constitution and around which, well, we all we all in tandem keep on progressing as a country has been and is the value of, as Dr. Ambedkar explained, fraternity. And Dr. Ambedkar explained that without fraternity, liberty and equality would be no deeper than a coat of paint. That were the exact expressions used by him. So fraternity, it is always for students of law particularly, and we all always continue to remain students of law. So one of the best things about the law is that once we join law, we always remain students for all times to come. Fraternity was added to our constitution, and it is around the fraternity that all other values take their shape, color, and they do proceed. I'm tempted to give you a few more lines from learned authors and the learned thinkers. Amish Tripathi would say, India, a culture that witnessed the dawn of civilization after all the ups and downs of history, is still there. The true strength of India lies not in uniformity but in diversity, in the ability to absorb and transform influences. Friends, when we are absolutely sure, and we have just rekindled our thoughts, that India's civilization has been a name of continuity, and it has, well, taught the world several of the values, and it has given shelter to even the persecuted. And talking about our constitutional values, taking their essential color and shape from civilizational values, it would be of interest to just have a look at what the thinkers of yesteryears who have great followings, one sect or the another, that doesn't matter. Fraternity is our hallmark. We all go always together, like that perfect murmuration of birds, those migrating birds who keep on, well, flying with different patterns and keep on changing. These thousands and thousands of birds, well, flying together, making different patterns, not a single bird hitting the other one, and all progressing. That great murmuration, well, it's a sight in itself. Well, a fraternity is the name of that, as some of the scientists have indicated, that if we go by the calculation methodologies and for maintaining those formations, different formations in the sky on continuous basis, well, every bird has to make at least 1 million calculation per second of the movement of the other bird, so as to not to hit the others. Now, I'm not on that. The point is that, well, we know how to fly together and how to march ahead together. I'm just indicating a few points from Vishwanath's 20 principles, the commandments of Vishwaya Lingayat communities, where, amongst others, is indicated that you should follow the principles of compassion, truthfulness, non-violence, purity, detachment from greed and trust, etc., etc. I'm not counting that. I'm just indicating You all are aware of that. I come from North India, means my native place, Rajasthan, state of Rajasthan, and particularly in those surrounding areas, we have another sect, a community of Bishnois. Bishnoi is the term, well, coming from the numerals Bis and No, 20 and 9. So there are 29 principles were given by their guru, well, Jambeshwarji. Again, out of those 29 principles, and it is very interesting to notice that those 29 principles will include a lot many of the duties and dedications towards wildlife and environment. But then, those 29 principles also include speak pure words, practice forgiveness, show mercy, don't steal, do not criticize, do not lie. Jainism has 5 great woes: ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Buddhism, you take 5 precepts: no killing, no stealing, lying, or intoxication. While Vishwanath's 20 principles, they emphasize social equality and rational spirituality. Bishnoi's those 29 principles, ecological ethics and compassion. The fact of the matter remains, we keep taking instructions from any of our surroundings. We find that more or less there had been certain aspects of teachings which had been common, perennial, and always existing, and they got reflected into our constitutional ethos too, one way or the other. Ours is a country, when I'm talking about these great learned visionaries of the yesteryears, who has given us ways of life for, well, integrating ourselves into Indian civilization and marching ahead. I'm also tempted to share with you something of a wisdom stated by some unknown mother, but of a very interesting incident that acquired attention on social media too long, or the present days. But, well, we are a society, we allow enlightenment, we allow illumination to come from any direction, any source. This is a story about, and it was, you'll find it on social media, it acquired attention of many people. There may be different opinions, but what I'm emphasizing about that words of wisdom. The story had been about a girl in Jaipur who took that bike ride, like Ola, Uber or something. So she took a bike ride, and while on the way home, halfway through, somewhere the biker ran out of petrol. So bike stopped. Now the lady had 2 options: either to cancel the ride, go for other ride, or to walk along with that biker 1 kilometer to petrol pump. She opted the second one. She walked with him to the petrol pump. Refueling was done, and the biker dropped her home. The app showed the hiring charges for that girl. It was showing rupees 101. But the biker said the charges are 108 rupees, 108. That 7 rupees difference was because of that extra distance they walked to the petrol pump. The lady, of course, made the payment, but felt a lot of unease inside herself. When she reaching home, she broke down in front of her mother and questioning that, see, I had been considerate, kind towards that biker, otherwise I could have cancelled the bike also, ride also. So, is it that, well, my kindness, my empathy, well, has no value at all? The social media reported the answer given by her mother, and it's very interesting. We have, well, value-based learned people of great wisdom, well, amongst ourselves. It's not necessary to have the name and fame of that. I do not remember the name of that. Probably that media or report also did not state the name of that lady. But what she said to her daughter was this. Sometimes, while consoling her and explaining her, she said, sometimes people are so caught up in their own struggles that they cannot see the kindness around them. That doesn't make your kindness worthless. The moral of the story is very, very simple. If you want to be kind, be it. Empathy or kindness is not transactional. You are not entering into a deal or a dealing that you are expecting quid pro quo, or you are expecting something in return. If you are expecting something in return, that is not the kindness at all. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of wisdom coming from amongst us only. Going back to, and these kind of words do come and these wisdoms do come because of our certain basics and fundamentals. As we were talking about different smritis, different timelines, different times, as we all know as students of law, the Constitution itself is the name of an organic document. It is ever evolving, ever living. It's always, well, taking its shape and color, well, from the requirements. And that has been, well, framed in that manner where, well, it can always readjust itself. We can always readjust ourselves towards progression, and therefore, any kind of challenge, well, an Indian is never afraid of or never doubtful of any challenge because, well, we know challenges keep on coming and we have been, well, always dealing with them, and we are capable of, even if a particular challenge is not defined today, well, that doesn't take away our capability, the potential always existing in us. One of the fundamentals as to why we are like that had been explained in our Vedic literature with something fundamental to the fundamentals, and that has been the principles of Rit. Rit, basically its meaning was the eternal cosmic order. Things are the whole cosmos moves, there has to be some order. There is an order, and that is why the cosmos exists, moves, and we are here. Well, there is something fundamental, something of orderliness in the cosmos, and and that is reflected in the human beings also. There has to be, and there is something fundamental. The interesting part of our legal system and our knowledge systems, that's why, well, had been of permanent character. That we have believed in, we have understood that of the fundamentals of orderliness on the principles of writ. Of course, that was during the Vedic era. Post-Vedic era, as the scholars would explain us, truth, satya, that became more prominent. The writ itself started taking shape with reference to the truth being the ultimate, the final. Writ and satya, truth, they ultimately culminated into, for our understanding, what we understand today as dharma. And then again we know it, that dharma itself is an expression which is very, very difficult to define in any particular mathematical theorem or norms. But it again takes its shape. But then fundamentals of righteousness, they had been informing us. They had continued to inform all our thoughts, not only in legal formulations, but even societal norms too, and otherwise of our understanding of the whole world and understanding of ourselves too. Long before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a few days back we had 10 December, we are celebrating Human Rights Day with reference to adoption of the declaration by the UN. And long before any other debates, any other charter, India had declared the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. As I indicated, fraternity as the hallmark of our constitutional ethos was inserted into constitutional preamble, although it was not there in the objectives resolution. Much before anything else, India had declared, again appearing in Maha Upanishad, the ethos of, as we repeatedly keep on informing ourselves also about, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But it would be significant to rekindle our thoughts again here also, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has not been a slogan given by somebody. The shloka reads thus: Ayam nija paroveti ganana lagu chet sam udar charitana tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The meaning was, and meaning is, and meaning would always remain. Ayam nija paroveti. Ayam nija paroveti ganana lagu chet sam. This is mine, this is yours. This kind of a calculation is made by the people of lesser understanding, little understanding. Lagu is the word for little. Mine and yours are the talks of and the refrains of the persons of, well, little understanding. Udar Charitana tu, the persons of higher understanding, broader vision, Vasudhaiva for them, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. For them, the world is a family. So friends, when we take note of these fundamentals from our yesteryears to the present years and our surroundings, and then if we look at our constitution, we may definitely inform ourselves as to how our constitutional values are basically Bharatiya values, and as has been explained by jurists, by learned authors, I'm just tempted to share with you the words of wisdom from none other but Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer in Bhim Singh Ji's judgment. Well, when it is in the context of that when we talk of constitutional values, it's not, and when we talk of the basic, as a students of law, we talk of, we instruct ourselves about the basic features of the constitution, basic aspects of the constitution. Very many times the temptation is to count, to recite the words, well, justice or equality or fraternity or sovereignty or federalism, etc., and then to count that these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 or 11 basic features of the constitution. Basic feature is not the name of counting any particular word and any particular expression. Basic features is the name of the values, and there I'm tempted to quote Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer when he indicated that equality is not Article 14. Equality is the value that informs Article 14. Article 14 is only giving a text to a fundamental value which is ever existing. So it is, and that is why as students of law, we always inform ourselves and keep on reminding ourselves that it is not only the text of our constitution that is just to be read and that way you understand constitution. It is the texture also which we need to take into account to understand what our constitution really means. The constitutional promise of justice enshrined in the preamble is again particularly found in the ancient concept of dharma, yug dharma, and prevention of Matsya Nyaya, where the bigger fish eating away the smaller fish, Matsya Nyaya. Well, so this is where constitutional promise of justice, and is very interesting for the students of law particularly, and for everyone for that matter, to appreciate that there is an orderliness, as we are the followers of orderliness everywhere, that in our constitution also, even in the preamble, justice, liberty and equality are posited in that order. That itself has, well, its significance and meaning. Justice comes first, and justice is not simply, well, the adjudicatory process in the code of law or any adjudicatory mechanism. Justice, social, economic and political. See the widest of amplitude. In the ancient Indian philosophy, dharma itself as a concept was far beyond mere, any law or any particular straitjacket strictures. Devoid of any definition, it is the righteous conduct that adapts and evolves with the moral order of each age. is the yug dharma of each era. So is the concept of justice under our constitution. It is neither rigid nor mechanical, but it is resonating with the constitutional morality, demanding the law to remain sensitive to the evolving needs of the society. Thus, dharma is not only related to justice, but is the very axis upon which the justice rotates and proceeds. Dharma, its relevance, Mahabharata, the great epic we all know about. When Duryodhan sought his mother Gandhari's blessings on the eve of war, Gandhari's blessings was Yato Dharma Istato Jaya. Where there is dharma, there is victory, or that victory follows dharma. We keep on we keep on going through the instructions in whatever form we take. We will find that dharma, the righteousness, the righteous conduct has been of the supreme concern, and we have been reminded of that, and all the things and all the values take their shape and color, and they get adjusted according to the needs of a particular era, a particular time. Commitment of justice is operationalized in our constitution in Article 13. To start with, as we take instructions, that any law which is not in accordance with our constitution cannot sustain itself. I'll be indicating a few other features of our Indian society and their reflection in the constitution, particularly with reference to duty when we talk of righteousness and the righteous conduct. And it would be significant and interesting to remind ourselves that our ethos are fundamentally based on not the rights but on duties. And in fact, every right, as we will take instructions from, will inheres in it a corresponding duty. When we take instruction from the very fundamental shlok from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Karmanya Vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachane. Well, what Lord Krishna is instructing is, well, your right is only to perform your duty. Well, these had been our fundamentals. But Constitution will explained, placed fundamental rights, assuring the citizens and correspondingly instructing everybody else that these are the fundamental rights, which are not negotiable qua a particular person. There are certain fundamental rights. Our Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam gets its resonance in something like Article 21, which we are not limited, right to life and liberty, which we are not limited to our citizenry alone. To every person that right is given. So our constitution is unique because it is based on values. Talking about rights and duties is interesting for a student of law to understand that, something of a peculiar nature like Article 32 is also there in the Constitution, where the right to relief in the apex court itself is given the status of a fundamental right. No other constitution has gone to that extent of vision where right to relief itself is a fundamental right, not only of having fundamental right, but right to relief against invasion of any fundamental right itself is a fundamental right. Friends, long before our constitution spoke of equality and dignity, Swami Dayananda Saraswati's Satyarth Prakash, that served as a strong instructor, contrasting against hereditary caste hierarchies, and that placed education, reason and equality at the center of the social life. It insisted against, in Satyarth Prakash again, Swami Dayananda Saraswati insisted that Satya or the truth must be anchored in the reason and that the social order must serve justice. By this core idea, Satyarth Prakash reflected the ideals of social justice and rationalism, the principles which are enshrined in India's own civilizational consciousness right from the beginning. This vision finds reflection in text form, Article 14, 15, 17. The constitutional guarantee of intellectual freedom enshrined in the form of right to speech and expression is again not a modern input, but the very presentation of the ancient principle of radical dissent. The Charvak school of Indian philosophy outrightly rejected dogmas and speculations and declared the evidence and immediately sensory perception as the only valid means of knowledge, representing the civilization's commitment to rationalism. Fundamental duty to develop scientific temper, inserted at the temper, humanism and a spirit of inquiry, inserted in Article 51, capital A, clause H. Of course, fundamental duties were inserted later on in our constitution, but as the scholars are more or less at one, of course there are certain debates, but debates are always, our society has always been open for every debate, so long as the debates are constructive one and constructive for the purpose of future progression, not for regression or even for status quo, because we have to always, well, keep on marching ahead. Living itself means progressing. In the fundamental duties to develop scientific temper, humanism and a spirit of inquiry and reform is definitely a continuation of those thoughts. Brahman is a particular expression for which several times several debates do come up, particularly correlating with a particular caste or a particular class, and then contrasting it with some of the challenges of inequalities or equalities. The fundamental feature was that non-hierarchical order of equality and equality of status, this finds mentioned in the ancient philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. That school declares that the divine essence is universally and individually present in every being, regardless of their external attributes of caste, class, birth, gender, wealth also. This vision uniformly perceives Brahman as indivisible and present in all human beings. diluting any distinctions of superiority. This leads to this conclusion in my submission that every individual possesses the same identical worth and strongly rejects, this philosophy strongly rejects the basis for any de facto hierarchy. And reflection in our constitution's formulations, when not only injunction of not only inserting fraternity in our preamble, the expression is assuring the fraternity so as to assuring the dignity of the individual. Well, these are very significant expressions. Well, why we are together? Because, well, we respect each other and then we respect dignity more than anything else. Friends, so many talks about the norms of evolving norms of 21st century come up, particularly now with the technological advancements, and as I commented, well, with the blink of eye now you are having, well, new advancements suddenly coming on, particularly now with the advent of the artificial intelligence. Honorable Sir, this artificial intelligence versus authentic intelligence, as I prefer to call, has been a matter of discussion earlier, and any other day we will definitely talk about it, and I will request everyone to find out that it is all said and done. Ultimately, it would be the authentic intelligence also having the initials of AI that will matter more rather than any artificial intelligence. But anyway, all said and done, what I wanted to emphasize that whatever be the challenges of whatever time, the dignity of the individual is posited at the highest order. And let us remind ourselves, whatever kind of artificial intelligence or VFX effects you can generate, dignity of an individual you can never draw out of any VFX or out of any methods of intelligence other than the human intelligence known to us. Human intelligence comprises of all those features and factors, including those of compassion, empathy, as we indicated. Friends, the architecture of the Indian Republic is also very significant and very interesting, and particularly several times the discussions do come up about the nature of our federal character. Well, again, the plain joints or flexibility of every principle is again a hallmark of our constitution, and that's why, well, we are unique. Our constitution is obviously the unique one. Even federal structure, as there are judgments after judgments, well, the Honorable Supreme Court has been, trying to define and explain, and as students of law we understand something basic, that, our federal character is not that of compartmentalization of different units, but then, whether it is having a central bias or it is inclined towards central, or what is its shape. It is quasi-federal also. In one of the judgments, the expression was used. I'm not on that. The point fundamental remains that it is not the federal structure as is understood in terms of those structures where there were compartments and there were different units. There are units together, and then, there is centralization with decentralization, which again, goes into centralization, and we keeps on, moving ahead. Advent of, as the Honorable Governor Sir was indicating, last few years we have we have adopted so many new things, and we have, well, started evolving, well, with much better pace also, apart from orderliness. GST, the advent of the GST regime is one of the classic examples of how our federal structure will informs itself and how our federal structure will perform itself. So this nature constitution, we need to understand it of its own, from our own ethos, from our own fundamentals. Our constitution, our civilization for that matter, our civilization had given instructions or given illustrations for other civilizations to follow. But our civilization has evolved the principles with reference to certain fundamentals after years of experiences. And then they remain again. All the principles have been evolved with the flexibility inherent in all. Flexibility for the purpose of betterment. Flexibility not for the purpose of, well, making it unsure. It remains certain, these values remain certain, but, well, they are flexible enough to be adjusted to any given scenario, circumstance, requirement of course, of assuring the dignity and assuring the justice to all, and of course, obviously, in the end goal to march ahead. So whether ours is a cooperative federalist federal structure, or a competitive federal structure, or a cultural federal structure, well, each of these features of federalism will keep on informing us or keep on operating at a particular point of time as need be. I would say ours is a civilizational federation. We all are united as a civilization. Friends, that being the beauty of our constitution, onus as it present for us is one, to understand its ethos and to appreciate that our constitution comprises only of Bharatiya values, well, which have come into existence, which have been understood and applied after years of experiences by virtue of our knowledge system, which had been widest in its amplitude and always ready to, well, let the light come from any direction. Tamso ma jyotirgamaya, that had been informing us always. Let the light come from, well, for darkness has to be removed. So we have never allowed, our civilization had never allowed darkness to engulf us, so that we are not in a position to answer any movement's requirement, or for that matter, we are not able to perform the dharma of that particular yuga or of that particular era. Of course, with 75 years and above of adopting our constitution, and when India is on the cusp of acquiring its glorious position in the world arena, it's definitely needed of all of us to contribute our part with reference to the course correction or the corrective measures which are required to be taken with reference to the present day circumstances, with reference to the present day evolutions, as also, well, informing ourselves that there had been certain shortcomings which were either wittingly or unwittingly, intentionally or unintentionally, which have got their inroads into, particularly when I am talking about our legal systems, particularly for that matter, justice delivery systems. But of course, as I say, that justice delivery is not the only promise of justice. Justice is of widest amplitude, as we just now indicated. But coming to the justice in the court of law, well, we find, and these had been the discussions, as I understand, the students of law, lawyers, judges, professors, and even civil society people. Well, a large, huge amount of pendency of cases has been a matter of concern. Definitely, it's a matter of concern for all of us. But the point is that it's now high time that rather than, well, taking short-term measures, of course short-term measures are also required to be dealt with whenever there is an immediate problem or a first aid kind of a thing required, but an overhauling is required. As an overhauling of making the whole system heartier, making the whole system, well, our civilization specific. And by the way, for that matter, I can definitely share with you. You are here, sitting here in, standing here before you here in Kerala Lok Bhavan, that some features in our constitution, like separation of judiciary from the executive, Article 50. Well, Kerala had been, the Travancore Cochin principles of law had been, well, of the great inspiration in giving Article 50, a small article in our constitution, in the directive principles its shape. So we have taken instructions from every nook and corner, whoever is forming the part of, well, our civilization. And that is why we again remind ourselves, we are not simply a name of nation state, we are a name of civilization. We all are together. Well, rest all, well, within ourselves, there are aspects which may require discussions, which may require debate, which may require course correction, which may require, even for that matter, well, trial and error also, as Honorable Justice H.R. Khanna indicated, talking about the constitution's, the parliament's right to amend the constitution, that, well, option is to require to be left even for trial and error also for the parliament. Yeah, because so within ourselves, well, within our fundamental values, and then with fraternity, we keep on marching ahead. Within that, well, these any discussion or any doubt or debate is always welcome, because the end result is always of a betterment in whatever any of the debater has thought earlier before entering into the debate. There, I was talking about the justice delivery system particularly, and delays and backlogs of cases. What is needed for us to contribute from our side is, first of all, our understanding that the colonial laws, the whole norms of, particularly when we talk about the laws of procedure, well, they were formulated essentially by the trading invaders or the traders who were invaders. That is how it started. They had their own profit motive always at the forefront. We find that there are several such norms were finding place in our jurisprudence of procedure particularly, which by the very nature will tend to create a scenario or tend to create a position where the people or the subjects are in endless adversarial combats. Justice delivery, particularly in the adjudicatory process, had always been a promise or to be made right from sovereign to the village or the family itself, that whenever there is any dispute, it ought to be resolved in the most methodical manner and proper manner and as early as possible. And that is why we had in our systems the systems of the courts of family, kul, the folk, the courts of the persons of the same trade, Shreni, Gana of the persons of the same village, and that is how the things existed. But anyway, the point here only is this, that we need to first of all understand that if there is something like, and I understand some students of law are here, something like section 80 of the Code of Civil Procedure mandating a notice before filing a suit against the government was provided so as to make sure that the government of the day, and mind you, that is, we are talking of 1908 Code of Civil Procedure, that the government of the day, if you want to litigate against, you need to wait. You need to give notice. That's not applicable for other people. Interesting feature, defamation. Defamation in Indian value systems and Indian legal systems of yesteryears, before the advent of these other jurisprudences, their intrusion into our systems. We have, as a students of law, we know it, that defamation, well, you have civil side remedy also, criminal side remedy also. But that was not the concept of our ancient Indian legal system. An honor of a person was given the highest value and regard. It was an offense. It continues to be an offense. But then there was no concept of this being converted into a civil litigation, and if your honor has been compromised, well, that particular compromising of your honor could be compromised by way of any monetary compensation. It was not our concept at all. We need to appreciate, we need to remind ourselves about. These are fundamentals of ours. When we have an offense like 304 capital A of the Indian Penal Code, when a person because of a negligent act loses a life, well, the punishment provided is 2 years, in contrast to the other punishments. We need to pause and ask ourselves as to whether it correlated with our concepts of prayashchit, the Indian criminal justice delivery system, which was more of reformative character rather than of retribution. But then this distinction, whether that was logical or having any rational in it, these are just a few examples, means there are examples aplenty. Again, what I'm projecting and I'm proposing to project and for your thoughts is not one or two sporadic sections or provisions. The system needs Indianization, and for that matter, well, anything which is contradicting the Indian value system will need to give way to a substitute which is attuned with or which is in conformity with our value system, the Indian value system. So friends, we all, for that matter, need to remind ourselves that our value system is based on a combination of rights and duties both, where duties, kartavya, is not a matter of convenience only, it's a matter of our character. It has always been a matter of our character. It has been informing our character. We come from a land where the welfare of all and the collective conscience that outweighs the narrow fruits for personal gains. We're moving ahead from the letter of law, moving away from simple expression of the letter of law towards the spirit of our law of land that is reflected in the civilizational legacy of India, that is Bharat. Again, our expressions, every expression in our constitution, when they consciously say India, that is Bharat, well, it informs us, it tells us a lot many of the fundamentals as to what our founding fathers expected us to understand. So we need to take a place and vow for protection of the Indian Constitution as an honor to the living inheritance of the dharmic vision, because where there is dharma, there lies victory, and where dignity is honored lies the thriving force of a nation. Thank you so very much having invited me and giving me this chance to talk to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir, for the informative and thought-provoking lecture. Now it's time for the interactive session. Please raise your hand if you have got a question. We will bring the mic to you. It's a humble request to keep the question very brief.